So I'm just going to invite Meti to check if everyone is in, and then we'll come back. Meti?
Thank you, Jenny. If everyone is around, please, countries, show your hands or give us a voice. So I'll just call Tanzania. Are you ready? Tanzania?
Yes.
Thank you. Mozambique? Mozambique?
for coming in and meeting all of you. can see people I know from somewhere else in the world, and I want to welcome you. At this, I'm going to welcome Mr. Sam Norga, the Director of Plan International AULO Office, to come and give us welcoming remarks. Sam. Sam, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. Thank Jennifer, and thanks for all our participants, Royal Highnesses, Excellencies, panel members, our beloved girls, boys, and young people, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and partners. It gives me great pleasure to give this opening remarks on the occasion of this important virtual meeting to exchange ideas and experiences on the role of traditional leaders in ending child marriage. This important meeting, which was supposed to have been held face-to-face, is being organized virtually because of COVID-19 and the restrictions on travels and meetings. This virtual meeting is supposed to generate ideas and outcomes to influence decisions towards ending child marriage at local, national, and continental levels. You would agree with me, dear colleagues, that our traditional leaders play an important role in keeping societies and communities together, and this honorable role dates back to many centuries. The role of traditional leaders in shaping and upholding cultures and belief systems permeates every society. The oversight role of traditional leaders cannot be overemphasized. As custodians of our culture and belief systems, traditional leaders provide a framework which regulate our culture and the way we behave, and especially that of marriage, which we all attest to. In the performance of your role as traditional leaders in upholding societal norms lie the nexus of legislation and constitutions, which sometimes conflict with customary laws. The dilemma has always been around where to draw the line. Traditional leaders in most of our societies play a great role in marriage ceremonies, and it is estimated that over 85% of all marriages in our communities are overseen by traditional leaders or their delegates. It is important to also acknowledge that some of these marriages involve children who are less than 18 years and who need to be protected from such marriages. The upset in child marriage is underpinned by factors which are well known to all of us. The implications of child marriages are equally known to all of us, and sometimes the abuses and the violations that result from child marriages are reported back to our traditional leaders as mediators in our communities. The question has always been, who are the faces behind child marriage and who are the most impacted? It is always the girl, some as young as 8 years. As with most gender-based violence, there's always a female face behind child marriage. The African Children's Charter, which was 30 years last year, prohibits any marriage relations between persons under the age of 18, and this is upheld by most national constitutions. The question to ask ourselves is, why do we still have child marriages whilst there are all these prohibitions? The gravity of child marriage is not only in numbers, but is the violation of an individual's right. We all have an obligation to support families to understand the impact of child marriages on children, especially girls. We have a collective obligation to protect, prevent, and prohibit child marriages from taking place at all costs. COVID-19 presents the world with an unprecedented development dilemma, which has projected to result in about 13 million child marriages over the next decade, according to a UN report. The phenomenon is very worrying and could reverse the gains made in addressing child marriages and gender-based violence in most of our communities. Whilst looking at the challenges, it's also important to recognize efforts being made at various levels by various organizations and institutions to fight and address child marriages. The AU campaign on ending child marriage is one such continental effort. As an organization, Plan International has a number of interventions, including the establishment of a Center of Excellence on Ending Child Marriage. At the country and community levels, Plan has been working with various partners and traditional leaders to end child marriage. We recognize, appreciate, and acknowledge the notable role played by some traditional leaders in their communities to fight child marriage, including the enactment and enforcement of bylaws in their communities and chiefdoms. As we delve into the discussion and exchanges, I would like to pay tribute to the great role being played by our traditional leaders in addressing child marriages and other harmful practices in our communities. As we share our experiences, challenges, and best practices over the next 2 days, I would like all of us to reflect on actions we can take individually and collectively to end child marriage. Girls are meant to be children. They are meant to be nurtured, and they are meant to be supported and guided to be responsible adults. We all owe it a duty and a responsibility to allow girls to grow as children and not as girl brides. As an organization, Plan will continue to collaborate with stakeholders to end child marriage, and we pledge our wholehearted commitment to this cause. Finally, let me wish everyone a successful deliberation over the next 2 days and hope that we would all share in these experiences, but most importantly, pledge to help address child marriage in our century. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sam. And for those very, very timely words for this, especially for around end child marriage and the role of traditional leaders, young people, and the community at large. Especially during last year, we have seen a spike in the number of child marriages across the continent. And it's this conversation, as you said, it's very timely to be able to chart our way forward and get an action plan towards ending child marriage. So next is, I'm going to invite Alejandra Bocamba. I'm hoping she can hear me now. So Alejandra Bocamba.
Yes, okay. It's okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to introduce Alejandra Bocamba for a minute. Okay, sorry. So I'm going to present. Just give me a second for my screen to maximize. So Alejandra Bocamba is a member of the African Committee of Experts, and since 2019, she comes from Cameroon, and she is a special rapporteur on child marriage and other harmful practices. Moreover, Alejandra Bocamba is a rapporteur of the committee. She's also the country rapporteur of Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Gambia, Ghana, and Niger. Alejandra Bocamba is a lawyer by profession and serves in the government in various senior capacities. Using her expertise and experience, she plays a tremendous role within the committee, including by leading the activities of the committee as it relates to child marriage and harmful practices in the state party reports, communication, and other activities of the committee. She also takes lead in the following up of implementation of provisions of the charter, the decisions and recommendations of the committee in the country she's a rapporteur to. Alejandra Bocamba has authored 2 books and has various publications. Welcome, Alejandra Bocamba, to give us your keynote speech. Thank you.
Oh, thank you to giving me the floor to speak on this occasion. Your Royal Highnesses, young people, the AU Goodwill Ambassador for Child Marriage, the representative of UNICEF, the representative of UNFPA, the country representatives of Tanzania, Zambia and Zimbabwe, the representative of Plan AU Liaison Office, the representative of African Engagement, Girls Not Bride. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol duly respected, it is an honor and a privilege to take the floor this morning for a welcome remarks on the occasion of this exchange meeting targeting traditional rulers to end child marriage in Eastern and Southern Africa. The theme is key for the development of our societies, and the choice of traditional rulers is indicative of their importance in our communities and their capacity to shape and influence the change we want. We can adopt laws, and we have indeed adopted same. At the continental level, both the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child define the child as a person aged below 18 and clearly enact the prohibition of child marriage. The African Committee of Experts on the Right and Welfare of the Child and the African Commission on Human and People's Rights have issued a joint general comment on ending child marriage to explain and elaborate on how states should implement their obligation towards their foresighted conventions. Yes, we can develop laws. We can also develop policies, and we have indeed developed same. The AU campaign on ending child marriage is one of the multiple initiatives in this regard. But It seems the phenomenon is going unabated in many parts of our continent. Children continue to be considered as brides. The southern and eastern part of the continent are no exception. It is therefore important that the holders of power in our community be involved in the fight, in the design and the implementation of any policy for a meaningful impact. For there will be no impact if laws, policies do not touch on what we deeply believe. We may have a dual approach of our lives, being in quote modern in an urbanized setting and traditional in the traditional setting. For we live in a system where our ways of doing things, our problem is not just one. For people of certain level, that can be at times unbearable. I'm very most grateful to Plan for this laudable initiative to take on board traditional ruler in this endeavor. Dear leaders, our royal highnesses, we will not play the blame game. But the truth is that some of our practices hinder the development and empowerment of our children. The early marriage exposed the child to health problems in terms of sexual and reproductive health. She's not able to bargain with the partner, and the body is not fit for motherhood. For most of them, the obstetrical fistula is the order of the day. The early and forced marriage deprives the child of the right to education. She cannot pursue her education, and even if she does, the burden of managing a household can be an handicap for her. Let us not forget, our girls are not brides. Dear participants, the program is very interesting, and we'll be discussing the topic from various angles. We'll have an overview of the continental policies that have been designed to tackle the scourge. The normative framework will also be reviewed with the norm developed at a continental level and experience of internalization. It has been noticed that COVID-19 pandemic has worsened the situation as concerned harmful practices, among which early and forced marriages. We shall also evaluate the situation in the region and country-wise. Dialogue among stakeholders is of great importance. In this regard, dialogue among the youth and the traditional ruler gives an opportunity to have the voice of the concerned heard. At last, we'll have our traditional rulers sharing their experiences, which will go a long way to help them share their best practices. Dear participants, I'm urging you and I to have a dream. Let us dream of ladies of impact who can bring change and development in our community. Let us dream of women capable of tackling challenges of tomorrow. For the dream to be achieved tomorrow, we need to act today. Let's agree on one.
Apologies, I think we have lost Madame Campbell. So at this juncture, I want to welcome Meti to come and just give us the background of the background and why this meeting is important. Meti?
Thank you, Jenny. Your Royal Highness, distinguished speakers, honorable guests, dear participants, all protocols observed. Allow me to express my gratitude for taking your time off to grace us with your presence in this regional traditional exchange meeting. And allow me to introduce why we need this meeting. So this meeting is part of the project known as Strengthening Civil Society to End Child Marriage in Eastern and Southern Africa, and which is currently being implemented in countries, Malawi, Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, in collaboration with partner organizations such as Girls Empowerment Network GENET in Tanzania, Women in Social Entrepreneurship Enterprise in Tanzania, Simukai Child Protection Programme in Zimbabwe, and Plan International Country Office in Zambia. In this project, the Center of Excellence in the African Union Liaison, Plan International African Liaison Office, African Union Liaison Office, plays central role in the project. Firstly, in harmonization of laws and increase civil society pressure at the AU and SADC level. And secondly, to develop and establish reporting mechanisms towards ending child marriage, and most importantly, to voice and use advocacy and influencing platforms for the communities that we serve. Having identified the role of tradition and culture play in practicing ending child marriage in the region, the project aims to intervene with traditional leaders and young people. In this regard, the project has planned for an exchange meetings among traditional leaders from the region, which was initially planned face-to-face, but due to the current situation with COVID-19, the meeting was changed to virtual platform. So in this meeting, this virtual meeting is expected to be undertaken today and tomorrow on the 26th and 27th of May, and is expected to achieve the following objectives. The first one will be to expose the traditional leaders from these project countries to the different aspirations, protocols, and legal frameworks of the AU that relates to children's rights, and more specifically to ending child marriage. Secondly, the meeting aims at introducing and exposing and linking the traditional leaders from the project ending child marriage campaign as well as HOTLA. And more or less, the meeting is expected to meet to come up with action plans for the traditional leaders and declarations which will be used for advocacy and influencing activities for AULO and the project countries with the AU level. So thank you for coming to this meeting, and this meeting will have different sessions whereby traditional leaders from the project countries will be sharing their experiences in ending child marriage at chiefdom level. We will also have participants from the project countries representing government at national as well as provincial level, who will be sharing their experiences and their efforts towards ending child marriage, as well as their efforts in national adaptation of these aspirations and legal frameworks of the AU at their country level. We'll also have sessions where we will be discussing the impact of COVID-19 on ending child marriage in the region, which will be involving the presentation of an assessment undertaken by the COE. Moreover, we will have a session where young people will be dialoguing with traditional leaders and sharing their experiences in terms of the work they have been working at their chiefdom level together as traditional leaders and young people. So at the end of the meeting, we're expected to have a declaration and an action plan, which will be used in advocacy and influencing at continental level. So with this regard, I would like to thank everyone for coming to this meeting and wish for the successful deliberation of this meeting. And the meeting is expected to be participatory and interactive, where all participants will contribute in the discussions and experience sharing. At this juncture, if Ms. Nina Tondo from the AU ECM campaign is with us. I would like to invite her to present the first session, which is about the works of the AU campaign, the expectations and legal frameworks of the AU SM, and the like. So Jenny, if we have Ms. Nena to do this, I would like to invite her. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meti. I can't see Madame Nena. I've not seen her joining yet. She's not in yet. Madame Nana, or did you join with another link? Meti?
Well, we could share the agenda for the participants to see until she will be joining us. I will communicate with her. The agenda for the meeting.
So as Meti has said, that is the agenda. We have day 1 and day 2, but today, so that we cannot overwhelm you, that is the agenda for today. But we have breaks in between. Madam Nena, have you joined us?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Sam.
Hi. Can we probably go to the next item on the agenda whilst we wait for Nena? Whenever she comes, she can join in.
Okay.
If that's possible. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
Stella, please, could she join? Okay. Jenny, she's joining. I think she has a network problem, but she will be joining shortly.
So in the meantime, as she joins, I want us to have like an interactive session. So most of us have been working and have had efforts on ending child marriage. So I just want from each country, as we wait for Madam Nena to join in, just one person to tell us that one thing that you think your country has done the best to end child marriage. Just one thing, each country. So I'm just going to go using my list. Malawi, just one thing that you think you have done brilliantly that is the best practice on ending child marriage. So that we can be able to open, as you do that, you can say who is in the room. You can be able to say, we have done this, and in the room is this person, this person, this person. So it's a way of introducing each other.
This side. What we've done as a country that we're proud of, our best practice in ending child marriage that we can share.
And I can see.
Yeah.
So we'll pause as you think. That is something you're going to do later. We will have to do it by the end of the day. Each country think of something that you have done amazing and then introduce yourselves. So, but Madam Nena is with us now. Welcome, Madam Nena, for you.
Yeah, my apologies to everyone. I was having problems connecting and unmuting, but I'm here now. Please forgive me for my late appearance, but I am here and ready to get on. Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
And hear you.
Okay, so are we going to start with the presentation, my presentation, or because on the program, the presentation is at 10:45, but I can start now?
Yes, Madam Nena, we start with your presentation. Kindly switch on your camera. We'd love to see your beautiful face.
Okay, I will show you, but I'll have to switch off the camera while I'm in, because I've noticed like, the network is worse when the camera is on, but just for introduction's sake. Okay, 1 minute. Okay. Hello, good morning to you all. I hope you hear me properly. I hope it's not breaking up. My name is Nena. I work at African Mission. I work as a coordinator of the Handbook project under the AU Department of Health, Humanitarian Affairs, and Social Development. And I coordinate at the technical level child marriages, female genital mutilation, and any unnecessary exploitation. So good morning to you all. I must switch off the camera because it's breaking up. So can you hear me now? Hello, colleagues, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's what I was saying. I have challenges with the camera on, it breaks up. But if you can hear me very clearly now, I'm sorry, I've had to switch off my camera so that you can all hear me.
That's okay, you're much clearer now.
Yes, yes. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sam, and your team for inviting AU to be part of this a very important event. And as you know, we've been working together since the campaign to end child marriage was launched in May 2014. Plan International has been a very strong partner with the AU. And you have shown us much commitment in this area, in ending child marriage and in ending harmful practices. So we are happy to be a part of this this key meeting, and Thank you once again, Sam, and your team for bringing it together and inviting us. So on behalf of our commissioner and our director, and also Dr. Jane, my direct supervisor, who is the head of social welfare and vulnerable groups. She's the one who, she's the head, and I work under her as the technical officer and the coordinator of the Harmful Practices project, as I mentioned, which looks at child marriages, ending the Salima initiative on ending FGM and ending online sexual exploitation of children. So let me get straight into it. So is it possible for the presentation to be shared on the screen? One of the organizers from Plan International, Meti, or someone, can they possibly, Meti, we had sent our presentation. Is it possible for you to share it with us on the screen? Meti, are you there?
Yes, Nina. Jane is trying to share the PowerPoint presentation.
It's myself, like you.
Okay. Okay. Anyway,
yes, like you, I'm having.
Okay.
I'm having a few challenges with my internet, so just give me a second. So I'm having a few. I thought it's also dropping off on my side. We've been having power cuts, so just give me a second.
It's okay. I'll get started anyway, and I can share with Meti the presentation, and she can share with the participants at some point through Google Docs or Google Drive, so that it's available. So the AU campaign to end child marriage. Let me start by giving introduction and brief background. Then I will talk about the strategy of the AU campaign to end child marriage. Then I will discuss the AU protocols and normative frameworks concerning the rights of children in relation to child marriage that we have. And then I will end on recommendations on the involvement of traditional leaders in their role to end child marriage and their adaptation of AU frameworks at their level as traditional leaders. We have been working with religious and traditional leaders for a while now. They're one of our key stakeholders. We have engaged with them at the country level. Before COVID times, we used to go on country visits and engage with member states and go into the field. Thank you so much. Go into the field and work with member states, local civil society, and we used to go into the field and also engage with religious and traditional leaders and see the kind of work they're doing with girls and women to end harmful practices, child marriage, and both child marriage and FGM, and the good work that they are, doing, best practices and so on. And a number of countries are doing very well. Zambia, for example, Malawi, even Egypt, and a number of countries are doing very well. So third slide, please. So introduction and brief background of the campaign. As we know, child marriage continues to be prevalent in Africa with negative consequences on the girl child and the society as a whole. A recent report by the World Bank has highlighted, of course, the negative impact that child marriage, and then a number of reports out there, UNICEF and so on, and which have highlighted, and also from Plan International, which have highlighted the negative effects of child marriage, not just on the physical in terms of health, psychological, the trauma, but also on the negative impact on the economic development of a country. So this child marriage is very complex. It affects so many different parts of the cultural, like I said, the cultural, the economic, the social, the physical, the health, the mental, and so on. And it's a very complex. It's a very complex practice it has so many dimensions. Go on to we have been working with a number of partners, as I've mentioned, Plan International, Save the Children, UN agencies. We've been working with religious and traditional leaders. We've been working with the civil society through our Goodwill Ambassador, Nyaradzai. We've been working with her, and we also have a special rapporteur on ending child marriage who helps us with the monitoring and evaluation component. Our Goodwill Ambassador, I'm adding just this in as we are discussing. Our Goodwill Ambassador works more on the advocacy side, and she helps us to mobilize local civil society so that we can have better outreach as the campaign. And also, she helps us to also mobilize youth who have been affected by child marriage, those who have been in child marriages and those who have been affected by child marriages. So this is these are some of the partnerships that we have. These are just some statistics of child marriage. Let's go on to the 5th slide. Okay. So I mentioned earlier that the campaign was launched in May 2014 at the 4th conference, at the 4th conference of Ministers of Social Development. And the campaign strategized its approach based on the following 3 components: advocacy, meaning visibility of the campaign, making sure the campaign is known and gets the political, because as the AU, it's an organization, a political organization. We start at the level of the member states. We start at the level of the member states, at the level of government, and from there we do outreach through our partners, particularly through our partners, including Plan, to region, to the community levels, local civil society, and so on. But our entry point is member state level. And so advocacy and visibility of the campaign, also at the regional level, not just at the national level, but at the regional level. And then monitoring and evaluation, which is very important, so that we know how the campaign is progressing. Is it having any impact? Is it, do people, are countries adapting are they launching the campaign? That's part of the advocacy, but are they launching the campaign? And after they launch the campaign, what is happening with their national strategies? Those who have some have weak national strategies, some have stronger national strategies. Some of the countries that have stronger national strategies have been Gambia, Malawi, Zambia, Namibia, even South Africa, Eritrea. These are some of the countries we've noticed, and Ethiopia here as well has strong national strategies. So we follow up on how are they implementing those national strategies within the communities that are affected by child marriages. So, and how is the campaign fitting in there after we've engaged with those countries? Then we also do facilitation of technical assistance and capacity building. Let me focus on the capacity building. The capacity building part has been very important because we have done capacity building on the role of religious and traditional leaders and learned a lot that a number of them have been doing a lot in their communities to end this harmful practice, to protect girls. They even have bylaws that they have in their communities to work against these harmful practices and to deal with the perpetrators. And in some countries, they even have community justice systems on how they deal with the perpetrators of child marriage and how they prevent child marriages or work together in communities to pull girls out of those marriages and put them back in schools. So this is very important. So the capacity building we're also planning to do capacity building for statistical bureaus. We're planning to do this year, because what we found is that a number of countries do not have adequate, not even adequate, some of them do not have statistics on child marriages at all. They have statistics on teen pregnancies, for example, the number of teen pregnancies, but those teen pregnancies are not necessarily of girls who are married. These are teen pregnancies of girls who got pregnant while studying, while in school, and so on. So we want to enhance that. We want to work with member states to build their capacity, throughout working with our partners to have this capacity. We're planning it around August, so that they can build the capacity of the statistical bureaus to be able to collect this information and to be able to do it at a multi-sectoral level. So to engage with other ministries that deal with child rights and child protection issues, particularly those that are dealing with harmful practices, specifically child marriages. So if we've gone a bit ahead in the slides, but if we can go to slide 6, please. Can you go back to slide 6? Okay. Yeah, slide 6, it focuses on, yes, that one. Okay, now just to let you know briefly, the campaign, excuse me, the campaign has been running since 2014, so that's now 7 years. But in 2019, we had a specialized technical committee on social development, labor and employment. It is a ministerial meeting. We used to call them the Conference of Ministers, but now it's called Specialized Technical Committees, STCs. So there was a ministerial decision that was taken because we had done an evaluation of the campaign from 2014 to 2018 to see how the campaign, this is part of the monitoring and evaluation. We did it with the assistance of UNICEF. So to see how the campaign, how far has the campaign progressed since it was came into force since it came was officially launched in 2014 and implementation started. So we did the evaluation from 2014 to 2018 and found that even though there's been a lot of political will and political backing, particularly through our AU champion on ending child marriage, who has been the president of Zambia, President Edgar Lungu. During AU Summit, he has brought, through his reports, which we have worked with him on, brought the issue of child marriages to the forefront to his peers. So this has been great. And also we have managed to engage with a number of partners, but there've been a number of gaps that we identified in the evaluation. One, some of the priority areas, such as we have added to some of the priority areas, which include inclusivity, strengthening of partnerships, development of a theory of change, an accountability mechanism, which is very important as we're developing that accountability mechanism right now. And we are working with UNFPA with that. And we have been engaging with them constantly to ensure that it is ready by July, and we shall present it at the STC and also at the 3rd African Girls Summit, which we shall have in November. So the STC will be in October, the 4th STC, and the next opportunity for us to present the accountability mechanism for not just for the member states, but for AU and different stakeholders, will be presented also at the 3rd African Growth Summit. And this, so back to this slide, the campaign at that ministerial meeting was extended from 2019 to 2023, and we were tasked to develop a new strategic plan. And this is where I have just mentioned the priority areas under this new strategic plan. The priority areas I've just mentioned to you. And this strategic plan has been improved on the last phase of the campaign, of which we did the evaluation that I've just mentioned. And so we highlighted the achievements and challenges of our last phase, and now we are working to improve through the strategic plan and the priority areas which I've mentioned. Next slide, please. Slide 7. Some of the specific, so the goal of the strategic plan. Please to slide 7. Goal of the strategic plan. Okay. Some of the goals of the strategic plan, I've already mentioned a few things. To accelerate actions at member state level to end child marriage by 2040 in alignment with the AU strategic document on Africa's agenda for children. I'm sure you're aware of Agenda 2040, which was developed by the African Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. So we align also with that. Then some of the specific goals of the strategy, there are many, but these are some of them. Strengthening monitoring, documentation, and accountability mechanisms, which I mentioned. Increased coordination, collaboration, and alignment of stakeholders with the AUC and all its stakeholders around a prioritized continental agenda for ending child marriage. Next slide, please. So these are just some of the areas. Slide 7, please. No, slide 8, sorry. Slide 8, please. Key areas of focus of the strategy. If you can move to the next slide, please. Anyway, while you're moving to the next slide, the key areas of focus of the strategy. We want to look at the ending child marriage from a rights-based approach, the protection of human rights, particularly of girls and women. We want to be gender transformative, also to include the role of boys and men, particularly boys, because as we've gone along and we've been talking about gender-based violence particularly in the context of COVID, gender-based violence has come up a lot from our different institutions. And one of the things which we have noted is that even pre-COVID, gender-based violence has been there, has always been there, but it's not something that it should be accepted as a norm in societies, because boys are not born violent. They learn from what they see. They learn from the way they are raised. So we want to change that narrative that gender-based violence, any form of gender-based violence against women and girls cannot be accepted, cannot be tolerated as a social norm. It's the responsibility of the community, the parents, and so on, to bring up those boys to understand that gender-based violence against girls and women, even against each other, is not a norm. So the involvement of men, and then inclusivity, that also involves that inclusivity, and it involves those with mental and physical disabilities, girls and women with mental and physical disabilities who are at high risk of harmful practices, and under gender-based violence is the overall framework. So child marriage is a violation, a form of gender-based violence, but they're also at risk of this violation of their rights, violation of themselves. And also girls and women who are right now we're doing a study on together with one of our partners, we're doing a study on looking at girls and women at the risk of gender-based violence in humanitarian and conflict situations. Those girls are also at high risk of because of breakdown of governance systems, no legal protection, nothing. So we're looking at it, but we're looking at it from the perspective of COVID. So we are looking at that area as well, in terms of inclusivity. Girls who are in humanitarian conflict situations, who are internally displaced, who are refugees, as I mentioned, those who have disabilities.
Sorry, Nina.
Yes. Yes. Hello? Hello? Hello, I'm not hearing. Hello?
Hi, Nana, we can hear you. I think there was a bit of an interruption. Not sure if it was directed towards you. So I guess you can go on.
Okay, did you all get my point about inclusivity?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so now just in the interest of time, the other focus areas on accelerated implementation and accountability for results, accountability of different stakeholders, including our partners, including also Plan International and other partners, and civil society, member states, and so on. So that's why we're developing the accountability mechanism. And then country and community ownership. The national strategies that countries have. There needs to be at country level. There needs to be the ownership of implementation of the programs on the ground, and making sure that it reaches the ground, that it's reaching the communities, that there's no disconnect between what is going on at the national level, that there may be legislation and laws against harmful practices, including child marriages, but it is not reaching the ground. There is a disconnect. So we want to also, work with member states to ensure that there is no disconnect between national level and particularly community or grassroots level. And then multi-stakeholder engagements. This does not include just, like I mentioned some of our partners, but it also includes other AU organs, the African Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, the Pan-African Parliament, the Banjul Commission, and the African Courts, the African Court in Arusha. So also working more closely with these bodies, because they have the, as you know, there's the charter and there's the general comment on ending child marriage. So these are key instruments that also align with the work that we're doing. So this is our also part of the multi-stakeholder engagement, and also working with other AU departments, such as now it's called Women, Youth and Gender Department. That is the new name, Women, Youth and Gender Department. We've been working with them, also peace and security. And now recently we've been approached by infrastructure and energy. They're doing work on child exploitation. So these different departments as well within the AU. And also to make sure that when we work with member states, we look at it from a context-specific angle. Not all countries are at the same level. Not all countries are at the same pace. There are some countries that don't have national strategies. There are some countries that, not to mention, but there are some countries which are even promoting child marriage. And there's some countries which are best practices, which are doing so much strong work on child marriage. So when we work with member states, we ensure that we're looking at it from a country context specific way. And also, just to go back, one of the stakeholders is regional economic communities, because those have been, some of them have been doing work on ending child marriage. As we know of the model law on ending child marriage. Also, EAC, East African Community, has been doing a lot of work on that, and ECOWAS to a certain extent. So next slide, please. If we can move on to the next slide, kindly. Okay, so the AU protocols and normative frameworks are quite a number. We have selected some. These instruments serve, of course, as a powerful normative statement on child marriage as a violation of children's rights, and they aim to address that protect children against any kinds of violations. We have the African Common Position. This includes the African Common Position on ending child marriage. And in line with that, we have a number of decisions which have come out of like two key decisions in 2017 and 2019. 2017 and 2019, yes, at the AUC Summit, Assembly Heads of State, or against this harmful practice. So this was a decision by the heads of state brought forward by our champion on ending child marriage, President of Zambia, as I mentioned. Then there's the the African Union Social Agenda 2063, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, which provides direction and guidance in addressing gender inequalities. There are different aspirations, and one of the aspirations is in addressing gender inequalities and gaps, as well as gender-based violence, including harmful practices and child marriage as critical pillars in delivering the Africa that we want. So, in a nutshell, protection of women and girls against any form of gender-based violence. And then I mentioned the joint general comment on ending child marriage that we worked with the committee on ending the rights and welfare of the child. This is reinforced. This general comment was it complements the work that we do, and there are also other international instruments such as the Convention on the Rights of the Children, the Convention on CEDAW on women, and Human Rights Council, and other UN General Assembly resolutions. And then not to one of the most important foundations when we first started the campaign was the Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. As we know, Article 21 looks at the protection of children against any form of harmful practices. This is a very key article, and this is the foundation that we started this campaign. And we have been working with the committee, and we want to engage them even more as they also, in terms of monitoring and evaluation, they have state party reports that are presented at their different sessions. And this is also, we see this as a good opportunity for us to be a part of this state party reporting process as part and align it to our monitoring and evaluation. Because as you know, when you collect data from member states, it can be very difficult. It can be primary data, it can be very difficult. And so they've been doing it for a number of years, and we want to work with them more on those state party reporting that they do from the angle of child marriage. If we can Okay, and then of course there's the Maputo Protocol on women, which also looks at against gender-based violence, against gender-based violence on girls and women. Next slide, please. Okay, so excuse me. Okay. Now, I mentioned the African Children's Charter on Article 21. Just to those who are not familiar with Article 21, it says to take all appropriate measures to eliminate harmful social, cultural, and cultural practices affecting the welfare, dignity, and normal growth of the child. And in particular, those practices which are prejudicial to the health or life of the child, which child marriage is, and also in the angle of gender discrimination. So this is a very key part. And the second part of Article 21 also looks at child marriage and the betrothal, provides that the Children's Charter provides that, sorry, it's not in the slides, but I'm just giving you for those who are not familiar with the article, the second part of Article 21, the African Children's Charter provides that child marriage and the betrothal of girls and children shall be prohibited, and effective action, including legislation, shall be taken to specify the minimum age of marriage to be 18 years and make registration of all marriages in an official registry compulsory. And I want to just add that this also ties in with birth registration. This is a key area that the committee has worked on quite extensively, birth registration. Because one thing we have found is when it comes to child marriages, sometimes the marriages take place, but the child doesn't have a birth certificate. So the child, for different reasons, maybe they were born in a particular area where birth certificates are not available, or they were born at home and not in a hospital. There are a number of different reasons and factors, which I won't get into now, but birth registration is a very key thing to determine the age of the child. And what we found, if I may give a quick example, in Eritrea, they have a very good system. If a child does not, what they do is they don't have the birth certificate immediately. What they do is when the child is born, they give them, the minute the child is born, they give them a vaccination card. They give them a vaccination card on the day that they're born. That vaccination card is stamped with the date of their birth. So that shows that that child was born on that day, and it is compulsory, it's mandatory. So this is a way of also birth registration. I found that very interesting. So if we can move on to, okay. So now the involvement of traditional leaders. I'm coming to the end of the presentation. Now, can we go back for the involvement, the traditional leaders, involvement of traditional leaders? Please go back one slide. Okay, so while we're going back, so the involvement of traditional leaders, the child marriage campaign, through its strategic plans, I already mentioned earlier, has always involved the traditional and religious leaders. And whenever we have any kind of advocacy event, even capacity building, we ensure to involve them, and because they are uniquely positioned to prevent and respond to the call to end child marriage. In specifically, but not exclusively, in decision and policy-making processes. And they have a lot of influence in their communities. This is what I've seen. People listen to their religious and traditional leaders. They listen to them and they listen to their guidance and their advice. This is what we have observed when we were doing our country visits previously. And we have continued to see this as we've been working, virtually. In December 2019, we had a meeting in collaboration with UN Women. In December 2020, a virtual meeting on the role of religious and traditional leaders. And we worked with UN Women, brought in the Council of Traditional Leaders, which UN Women works with very closely. And it was so the outcomes were that we cannot neglect the influence that religious and traditional leaders have in their communities and the work that they're doing. And we got a lot of good information on best practices, how they're protecting their girls, how they're promoting education. So this is very important. Okay, so through programs and trainings of traditional leaders on ending child marriage and other harmful practices, the reason I'm mentioning other harmful practices is because, just to go way back a little bit, under our department and in the division, which is headed by Dr. Jane, our head of social welfare and vulnerable groups, we refer to harmful practices. It's a harmful practices project. They're different projects, but we're under one unit. So now the campaign encourages the domestication of AU policies and procedures of child marriage at national and local level, particularly starting at national level, and such as looking at the establishment of task forces and committees at national level, mandated to implement interventions to address social and cultural drivers of harmful practices in child marriage in respective communities. But it has to start at the government level. So this is something which we promote. And also, I mentioned these task forces should be at a multi-sectoral level, not only involving the ministry dealing with child marriages, but also statistical bureaus, Ministry of Finance, because to tackle child marriages requires investment. So these task forces and committees should involve, and also national human rights commissions. So this is what we promote at national level. And also intergenerational dialogues between traditional leaders and other key stakeholders, including at the member state level, and also with the youth. It's important because child marriage involves children and youth, so up to the age of 18 years old. So we encourage intergenerational dialogues during our meetings, intergenerational dialogues that involve traditional and religious leaders. And also, I mentioned resource mobilization and allocation by member states to support initiatives that protect and promote children's rights. And resource mobilization by different partners, including the AU. And one of the key partners we've been working with recently is Child Helpline International, to ensure, we just started a project with them this year, to ensure that countries have those child helpline facilities. A number of countries do not. Those child help, where if they're in any kind of risk of child marriages or they are in any kind of danger, that there's somewhere there's a child helpline, even in the rural areas, that they can call and say, this is what's happening. And those measures need to be in place. It has to start at the government level to ensure that those measures are in place, that those child helplines are there to assist girls and women who are being affected, who are facing gender-based violence, including child marriage, FGM, and all other forms of abuse, particularly in these times of COVID, even after pre-COVID and so on. So this is a project that we're working on. So now, if I may continue to the next slide. Next slide, please. I've already addressed that. Okay. Okay. One thing which I wanted to also bring to the attention was that we talked about capacity building, and this is very important as well. We have done capacity building with religious and traditional leaders, and we want to accelerate in order to accelerate inclusive development in their respective chiefdoms. And for them, through sustainable solutions, we want to hear from them about we engage with them, and I mentioned intergenerational dialogues. We engage with them, and we engage them with other stakeholders to find sustainable solutions, concrete solutions that we can take forward to address these negative traditions and social, what is considered social norms. And how can this be done? How can we take this forward? And how can we assess that it's being done? So these are some of the areas that we look at. So I have just 2 more slides. Recommendations to traditional leaders. Traditional leaders should be actively involved in efforts on ending child marriage by familiarizing themselves on all treaties, AU, and this is what we do in our capacity building, on AU and other AU policies, charters, treaties, and other international treaties, which deal with the protection of children's rights, especially girls who are more at risk, but girls in general, but those who are more at risk. And they should know, and by knowing their national constitutions and domestic legislation, and be conversant with provisions which protect the child's rights, as legal literacy is a necessary tool in the fight against child marriage and other harmful practices. So what I mentioned this before, that there should not be a disconnect between what's happening at the national level with the legislation and the national strategies and what's happening at the community level. We can find that there's legislation, there's even a strategy, but at the community level where the traditional leaders are, there may not be any knowledge of what this legislation or what the legislation entails or what the national strategies are truly about. So this is important for this this to be encouraged. And then traditional leaders should also be involved by using available platforms such as social media platforms. As we know, these days it's all about social media. You find, and since we talked about intergenerational dialogue, a lot of people, including the youth, particularly the youth, are on platforms such as TikTok. They're all on TikTok. They're all on even Facebook is even they're even on Facebook. Facebook is a bit less. It's still there, but TikTok is the one that's trending a lot of the time. They're on Snapchat, they're on Instagram, and so on. So they need to familiarize themselves with these are traditional leaders on social media platforms to advance the advocacy against harmful practices agenda, and to circulate information and petitions for signing against this within their national level and even at the regional level, you know. So the next one is also want to work with them to come up with innovative ways to promote girls' rights and raise awareness on the issues that children are facing, and create solutions on the challenges in their respective chiefdoms. We find one of the challenges which we found was children marrying other children. It's not, as we know, it's not always, the perpetrator is not always an older man marrying a younger girl, or the family pushing their daughters to marry an older man due to different reasons, such as poverty is one of them. But you find that children drop out of school due to teen pregnancies. Sometimes they run away and they get married or start living in a kind of partnership like a marriage, and their families do not know. This is a very key point that cannot be ignored, and we have seen this in different circumstances. My final slide, this is, if I may have the final slide. Okay. And also, as leaders within their community, they must speak out against, I think this goes without saying. And we have seen this. We've seen traditional leaders speaking out against child marriage and leading the change in community attitudes within families, in their communities, in their respective chiefdoms, to show that the girl is as valuable as the boy, to work against gender discrimination, that a girl is not an asset, is not the word I'm looking for is not, for lack of a better word, she's not, she can do the same things a boy can do. She's not just, she's an asset. She's an asset that can do the same things a boy can do, but she needs those opportunities, you know? So this is very important. And also, I talked about this before, engaging them. We've been engaging with them, and other partners have been engaging with them, and also to engage them with regional economic communities on enhancing their response to child marriage. And this is what I talked about earlier on our engagement with regional economic communities and other AU organs, bringing in also traditional leaders at on different platforms. And then in communities where the traditional leaders play a prominent role in decision-making or influencing the ongoing norms, they need to be targeted interventions can support them to become positive advocates for change, who fully understand the implications of child marriage for girls and their families. So this goes back to the linkages between what the national strategies and what's going on at the community level. Traditional leaders must be also at the decision-making process. They must also be at the table where they can also give their input and give their experiences at national level, and be part of the decision-making processes on ending these harmful practices, because a lot of them have much experience at the community level, but they must not be that disconnect. So in conclusion, thank you so much once again to Plan International for organizing this very important meeting and for inviting the AU to give our perspectives. And I hope that I have helped you to see how we are working with the traditional, we don't just call them, we also work with religious leaders as well. That's why I was mentioning traditional and religious leaders. So I hope I have given you our perspectives and how we've been working with them. And thank you so much once again to all those who have been listening, and to our also colleagues from Toto News, but particularly Plan International, led by Samuel Norga, who we've been working with for many years and has supported us greatly. So thank you once again for your kind attention. I have come to the end of the presentation. If there's a few minutes, I'm not sure, for any quick comments or questions, I can take a few. Thank you, and over to you, the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina, for the presentation on AU-SM campaign works, as well as the legal frameworks, the AU aspirations and the like. Quickly, if participants have questions, I will give chance for one or two participants, because we have overrun our time for this particular presentation. So if anyone have a questions, just raise your hands and please pose your questions to Nina. Jenny, I can't see, I'm not seeing any raised hands. So if you can see it from your side, please let me know. If not, we will resume to the next session. Jenny?
I can't see any hands up. Thank you. Thank you, Meti.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nina, for availing yourself in presenting on the topic. I will after this, I will introduce the next session, which will be moderated by.
Thank you so much, Meti. Thank you so much, and thank you once again for everyone for listening. Okay, yes. Good. Thank you.
Bye. So our next panel discussion will be on African Union protocols and normative frameworks on child marriage. We will be discussing on national adaptation and domestication. So participants from the national and chiefdom level will attend this discussion. The session will be moderated by, I would like to call her my colleague, Lynn Chinin from Plan International Center of Excellence, 18+ sub-regional coordinator. Lynn, over to you for facilitation of the next discussion. Thank you. Lynn? If our team from Zambia could hear us, could you please link us with Lynn?
Hello, Meti. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Sincere apologies. We were trying to unmute the microphone, but I hope I'm loud and clear. Good morning, everybody in Malawi, Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and all our other participants that are joining us from beyond. Welcome once again to this Traditional Leaders Exchange meeting. So my job today is to facilitate a panel discussion. To facilitate a panel discussion following Nena's presentation on the AU-ECM campaign, relevant AU aspirations and expectations concerning the rights of children with respect to African Union protocols and normative frameworks on child marriage, national adaptation and domestication of continental, national, and chiefdom level perspectives. So allow me to introduce my panelists. I will start with Dr. Nyaradzai Gubonzanga. Are you, oh, I can see her. Hello, Dr. Nyaradzai. I hope you can see me.
Yes.
Dr. Nyaradzai is the founder and chief executive of Rosario Memorial Trust, the organization she founded in memory of her late mother, based in Murewa, Zimbabwe. Dr. Nyaradzai is the African Union Goodwill Ambassador on ending child marriage since 2014. She has extensive work experience at the local, regional, and international level. She served as World Young Women's Christian Association General Secretary for almost 10 years, responsible for 120 countries and reaching 25 million women and girls. She has extensive work with the UN, where she was for a decade with UNICEF and UNIFEM, now UN Women, and she served as a member of the UN Commission on Accountability for Women and Children's Health, and was a member of WHO Director General Advisory Group on Ebola. She also serves as the member of the UN Civil Society Advisory Group on Women, Peace and Security. Dr. Nyaradzai, welcome to today's panel discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so. Thank you.
Sorry about that. One more second, Dr. Nyaradzai. Also, allow me to introduce to you His Royal Highness, Chief Chamukha VI. He is our regional champion on ending child marriage, traditional leaders regional champion on ending child marriage. He hails from Chisamba district in Zambia. He sees the devastating impact of child marriage. He sees the devastating impact on that child marriage has on girls, and works with people in his chiefdom and beyond to bring an end to the practice. As a traditional leader, he has developed close networks within his community and beyond, which he makes full use of to crack down child marriage. Your Royal Highness Chief Chamukha, welcome to today's panel discussion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I also would like to introduce McKnight Kalanda, who hails from the Ministry of Gender, Director of Children Affairs from Malawi. Malawi, are we there?
Lynn, I think you're breaking. We can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Lynn.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Lynn.
Okay.
Lynn,
okay.
Malik, are you able to focus on McKnight, please, from Malawi? Just focus the camera on him. Malik? No, we
Malawi,
can see.
Can you focus the camera on McKnight Kalanda, please?
Yes, or he can move near the camera.
Okay, perfect. Allow me to also introduce, I hope I pronounced the names correctly, Brigitta Haule from Ifakara Town Council, Community Development Officer from Tanzania. Brigitta? Tanzania, if you may kindly face the camera to Brigitta Haule. Also allow me to introduce Nerida Tamburi, who is interim head of African engagement at Girls Not Brides, the global partnership to end child marriage, an alliance with over 850 African civil society organization members, where she's responsible for building and providing critical support to strengthen national level networks and alliances working to end child marriage in Africa. Nerida is a human rights defender from Kenya with over 15 years experience in the social justice and legal sectors. She holds a Master's of Law degree in Public International Law and is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Nerida has a background and keen interest in the advancement of equality on non-discrimination and access to justice. Madam Nerida Ntamburi.
Thank you so much. for your invitation. Looking forward to discussing about you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Also allow me to introduce Mona Aika, who is a child protection specialist with the United Nations Children's Fund, East and Southern Africa Regional Office. She has over 15 years of experience with the United Nations and NGOs across various countries in Africa in the areas of addressing violence against children, child care reform, harmful practices, child marriage and female genital mutilation, and child protection system strengthening. In her current role, she leads the global program to end child marriage, the UN Joint Program on Female Genital Mutilation Elimination, and the EU Spotlight Initiative Regional Program in the East and Southern African region. Mona, welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy to be part of the panel.
Thank you. My other panelist is Anadita Filiposa. I hope I pronounced that name correctly, who is the Youth and Gender Specialist with the United Nations Population Fund for East and Southern Africa Regional Office. She has over 15 years of experience with the United Nations across various countries in Africa and Asia in the areas of health, gender, adolescence, and youth. In her current role, she leads the global program to end child marriage in the East and Southern Africa, as well as manages portfolios related to human rights, gender equality, youth empowerment, and parliamentary engagement. Anadita?
Good morning. Very glad to be here. Thank you.
It's an honor to have you. And last but not the least, allow me to introduce Madam Precious Babbage, who works for Plan International Zimbabwe as an 18+ project coordinator, implementing the Strengthening Civil Society to End Child Marriage project, funded by the German government, BNZ. And she is responsible for ensuring that project implementation and project efforts aimed at ending child marriage are implemented effectively within the country context. Precious, welcome to the panel discussion. Precious, are you there?
It's muted.
Uh-oh, she's muted. Okay, I'm sure she...
Lynn, hi everybody. Looking forward to fruitful discussions. Thank you, Over.
Awesome, thank you so much. So Nana has put us through what the African Union, their mandate is when it comes to ending child marriage. And there are a lot of regional protocols and instruments that the African Union has, of course, in collaboration with member states and with the support of member states and with the buy-in of member states, are working on the implementation of the Maputo Plan of Action of 2016 to 2030. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the African Charter on the Rights of the Child. Do we mind muting the microphone? If you are not. Sarah? Thank you. Okay, so there are more of these instruments that many countries have ratified and have committed to domesticating. Sarah? Sarah, can you hear me? Or the admin, do you mind muting Sarah, please? Meti, do you mind muting Sarah, please?
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so I will dive right into the questions. So Dr. Nyeradzai, I'll start with you. In regards to countries implementing, domesticating these regional instruments, what do you think is working well based off of what you are able to see from your desk? And what do you think are the challenges that we are experiencing so far as member states in implementing these regional instruments at country level?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me start by recognizing the traditional leaders in the House and of course all the partners. I am Zimbabwean, and you allow me by doing how we do it at home. When you have the traditional leaders, you give them the recognition, and it's very important. So let me start there. And of course, other Zimbabweans would say, yes, and we can ululate. It's important for us. Yesterday was Africa Day. It was Heritage Day. It was the day where we assert our identity as a people. And therefore, the meeting today and your question is about Africa reclaiming its identity to protect its own citizens and protect its own values. So, as the African Union Goodwill Ambassador on Ending Child Marriage, and also in my work at Rosaria Memorial Trust, I'm also very honored that I live in Shamba District. And today we have two chiefs in the house from Shamba District. They'll be able to share personally on what they are doing. So what I see are three things. There is a good measure of political commitment and good rhetoric in our member states on protection of children's rights, on ending child marriage and FGM. So we have many countries have launched their national action plans. Some countries have launched the national campaigns to end child marriage. Countries have protection of rights of children, rights of women, gender equality and human rights in their constitutions. So that is good. That feels good. What is also fairly good is a strong increasing mobilization of sector ministries beyond the Ministry of Gender. So we start to see the work in education strongly taking the indicator of child marriage, the work on adolescent health, integrating work. We still want to see much more in the area of justice, but we know we have juvenile justice programs. So that also the interministerial.
Sorry for that, Dr. Nyozai. Dr. Nyozai?
A support from the Ministry of Local Government. I think it's important that the ministry responsible for local government or chiefs is also fully supporting for us our work with the district, the Ministry of Local Government in Murewa, in Shamba. It's important to see a Ministry of Local Government which facilitates the work of traditional leaders, getting more interested and more supportive of this work. And we want to see more of that. What is not happening and what is painful? That
Apologies, we are using my phone for the internet, so I think it's hanging. Do I just wait or? Huh? Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Dr. Nyozai, can you hear me? Hello, can anybody hear me?
We can hear you, but I think there's a problem with the network of Dr. Nyaradzai.
Oh, okay. I thought it was on my end.
Baskets.
Dr. Nyaradzai, can you hear me? Okay, she's connecting by phone. This is the new normal, so sadly we would have to get used to the idea of using the internet to have these meetings. Dr. Nyaradzai, can you hear us now?
Commitments. But some of the laws do speak to each other. At times they are contradictory and inefficient. So we have a law which says every child is right.
Dr. Nyaradzai? Dr. Nyaradzai, can you hear me? I think we're having challenges. She's muted her microphone. So maybe we can proceed.
Yes.
Okay, hello,
yes,
Dr.
I can hear you. And
okay, we kind of sort of lost you for a bit. I don't know if you can hear me right now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, just for purposes of continuation, do you mind repeating the last 2 minutes of what you said? Because I think we lost you. I think is it possible to connect via WhatsApp? Can I call you via WhatsApp, Dr. Nyaradzai?
I think the challenge that we have in the national domestication and implementation is we have contradictory laws. Yes.
Dr. Nyaradzai?
Yes.
Okay, you were breaking again, so we could
maybe we should continue with other panelists as Dr. Nyaradzai joins.
Okay, so I will move to His Royal Highness, Chief Chamukha. So when we talk about the Maputo Plan of Action, which seeks to take the continent forward towards the goal of universal access to comprehensive sexuality education, reproductive health services, it speaks to the integration of sexual and reproductive health services, family planning, developing and promoting youth-friendly services and safe abortion, and so on. And also when we look at the CRC, which is the Convention on the Rights of the Child, it's a UN convention that speaks, that speaks to child rights. And what is contained in this treaty is that children are not just objects who belong to their parents and for whom decisions are made for adults in training. Rather, they are human beings and individuals with their own rights. And therefore, when it comes to your interventions at community level, Your Royal Highness, how do you see yourself taking all these aspects of these regional instruments into perspective as you try and end child marriage in your chiefdom?
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like also to reiterate the importance of Africa Freedom Day, which was celebrated yesterday. And I would like to take this opportunity to remind all of us that the day was there to remind us that a certain percentage of our people, in this case our women and girls, are still trapped in gender-based violence. And it is the right time now, mostly this year, that we need to take action in order to provide them with freedom. I think it is also important to note that in our kingdom and as Zambians, we believe that boys and girls should treat one another as brothers and sisters, and not wife and husband. And older men should treat the girls as their children. Palaces now are open to the public. There is nothing which is a taboo for our children. We believe that it is better we train young boys and girls because it is so difficult to correct them when they become old. I thank you for your question. Addressing the domestication of the AU protocols, international protocols, the national laws, policies, and strategies on the issues to do with child protection. In our case, in the chiefdom, we were actually given the strength to act after observing that a lot of our children were seen carrying and breastfeeding children, waste more dropping out of school due to what we may call child marriage, though it is not marriage as per se, and also teenage pregnancy. So what we had to put in place was to embark on a journey in the year 2015, the journey to develop chiefdom bylaws, which involved all the head persons, parents, youth, religious leaders, civil society organizations such as Plan International Zambia, school head teachers, government, farmers, lawyers, and other experts. The question was to establish the factors causing early child marriage and teenage pregnancy, and these other factors. And so we established the solutions, and in 2017, the bylaws were launched, and we put them in full swing. To properly address this, we ensured that we put in place the Palace GBV Secretariat, and then apart from that, we also established village gender committees. Then apart from village gender committees, we had to put in place the 5-year strategic plan to ensure that we have a touch of guidance on how to tackle all these challenges, on how to do the resource mobilization, the planning in the chiefdom, and also the budgeting and the financing. We had to ensure that we put in place sensitization programs or campaign programs in order to address the Maputo protocol. We put in place a committee responsible for health to ensure that all our women are encouraged to visit the health facilities in order to access family planning services, and also to implement or to ensure that they are availed with access to all those protocols or decisions that are listed under this protocol. And we also put in place a program to ensure that our court system or justice system was strengthened by bringing in place different stakeholders to train our traditional leaders. And with that training, we ensured that by that year, 2017, we started dissolving illegal marriages, which today we are calling child marriages. And we started in the same year implementing, using a robust approach, the re-entry policy to ensure that the girls who were removed from the marriages are taken back to school. But there you dissolve a marriage, what next? What next is to sponsor or provide a scholarship to this child so the child can get back to school. And using sacrificial leadership, I may call it, by using our own family resources and also lobbying from others. We started managing, buying school requirements, uniforms, and so forth, and then take the children back to school. We have managed to dissolve more than 60 marriages, and all these children have been taken back to school, and working in collaboration with the stakeholders, we are now sponsoring more than 360 children whom we have taken back to school. I would like also to mention that what is cardinal about our chiefdom bylaws, I don't know if they can see, about our chiefdom bylaws is to ensure that we adhere to the minimum marriage age. And this is very, very important. What else we appreciate that 18 years is the minimum marriage age. We believe that it is not a must that children should get married at 18. And so in our bylaws, we have come up with 21 years as a guiding age for our children to get married. Why we believe 21 years is so important is because at 21, our children will have completed their primary education, secondary education, tertiary education, and they've been gone into employment to attain economic independence. And we believe at this time they are mature enough to make informed decisions and understand the importance of engaging into marriage. And we believe that even their bodies are mature enough to withstand the pressure of undergoing or experiencing labor. And then we also put in place women empowerment programs because we believe that if women do not have access to land, for example, because as we are coming from the rural areas, and in rural areas, the mainstay is farming, is agriculture. We abolished all the bad cultural practices that were denying access for women to land, and then women have now secure land. And more than 2,000 women have been given land which is secure. They have even been given certificates. And apart from that, we had a groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of the one-stop center, which was launched by the First Lady of this Republic of Zambia in company with the First Lady of Ghana in 2017. And I'm glad to mention that this one-stop center is now operational, and on the 3rd of this month, the head of state himself, the President, Dr. Edgar Chagwa, the champion on ending child marriage appointed by the African Union, came to the palace to commission this one-stop center. At the one-stop center, we have the police. At the one-stop center, we have the medical room. At the one-stop center, we have the psychosocial counseling room. At the one-stop center, we have the Chiefdom Development Trust room. Why do we have the Chiefdom Development Trust room? Is to do the resourcing. We believe that in Zambia or in Africa, we are not poor. We are very rich. We have plenty of resources. And we are working with cooperating partners, such as Plan International, the United Nations Development Programme, and other stakeholders. We believe that if a chiefdom doesn't have a formal structure, which is supposed to be a conduit to be receiving resources, such a chiefdom cannot receive any assistance, because that money which comes into the chiefdom is deemed as public money. And so we have a Chiefdom Development Trust, which was actually registered, and it is now operational. This is receiving financing, and this financing is there now to support the children whom we are sending back to school. We have trained the paralegals, we have trained the CCPUs, and these are helping, like the paralegals are providing legal guidance. And then the CCPUs are working in collaboration with the police. In short, the coming of this one-stop center has brought the services which government is supposed to provide closer to the community people. Because in the community, that's where we have problems. And if we check on the urban and rural, we see a gap. The urban children have got access to a lot of internet facilities, they are busy, the schools are closer to each other, we don't have so many cases. But in the rural areas, we have fewer schools, the children have to walk or cover distances of maybe 20 kilometers in a day to go to school, so we have a lot of cases. As a result, these services have to come closer to the people so that we have the police does the investigation, receives and investigates, and within the same room, the medical doctor who is on call also signs that medical report, and then the medical report goes back to the police, and then from the police, the case goes to court. So we are using this facility as a fast track facility, a rapid response center, because cases to do with the family planning, cases to do with the rape, cases to do with defilement, cases to do with child marriage, they need rapid response. And this is what we have brought in the community. So we have engaged in a robust awareness campaign, and we have also started doing what we may call village marriage registration. All the marriages that are taking place in our chiefdom now, they are being registered. No one is allowed to marry before the marriage is registered. And how do we ensure that the right people are going into marriage? One, we ask for a birth record certificate. Then apart from the birth record certificate, we also ask for a letter from the school stating that the child is out of school. So the birth record certificate will tell us the age of the child. If the people engaging in marriage, or maybe one of them has not yet reached 18 years, or has reached 18 years but still in school, the marriage is regarded as null and void. And these children are asked to go back to school. Now, I would like also to mention that we have also embarked on the establishment of the minimum standards to run the village-led one-stop center. We believe that if you have a one-stop center and then you don't have guiding principles, then you make mistakes. And because we have different people running the one-stop center, that's why we have these minimum standards. So I'd like to mention that when I started campaigning, 45 early child marriages were recorded. And today, within the same quarter, we have only a record of 3. And when I started, we had 249 teenage pregnancies. Today, on record, we have only 4. And when I just started, we had 66 gender-based violence cases, of which more were husband on wife cases. But today, we have on record only 6. So you can see that with the establishment or development of chiefdom development trust, and with the establishment of chiefdom bylaws, and putting in place gender committees at palace and even in village level, things can work whilst we embrace the multi-sectorial approach, because I believe that alone I cannot manage. And what is interesting is that I'm not too selfish. We have come up with bylaws, but we have shared the bylaws across Africa. Whenever you go to different countries, I think they have got copies of our bylaws. And I've also shared these bylaws with the chiefs within Zambia, and we have continued sharing. This is very, very important to ensure that we do not create or leave a gap where things are working in one chiefdom and in the other chiefdom, there are the challenges. Because if this continues, then it's like I'm working at zero. So maybe I may stop now, but I would like to inform the public or the listeners or the audience and my fellow panelists that we are on course, drawing our strength from the international protocols, the AU protocols, the SADC protocols, and the national laws, because we have to ensure that this trickles down from that above to the grassroots, where the problem is. And so when these partners and international organizations are budgeting, please remember that the problem is not there, up there, but the problem is at chiefdom level, where poverty is so high, where people are illiterate, and so there is need for a percentage of justice and finance going direct to the chiefdom, because chiefdoms now have got the chiefdom development trust, okay, the structures that can manage the finances and be audited. So please consider us, mostly with transport and finance. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Royal Highness. That is actually, we've learned quite a lot. It's amazing what you are doing at chiefdom level. And obviously we've harvested a lot of best practices so far on what you are doing at chiefdom level, to which all the other traditional leaders listening in today have picked from. So I'll move over to Mona. Mona, UNICEF. How is UNICEF supporting national adaptation and domestication of the AU protocols in the countries that you are supporting?
Thank you.
Mona?
Thank you very much. First of all, thanking Plan International for organizing this meeting. And I'm very pleased to be part of this discussion with the very esteemed traditional leaders. Let me start off by giving a bit of an overview of what UNICEF and UNFPA are doing when it comes to supporting national adaptation and domestication of the African Union protocols and normative frameworks on child marriage. In 2016, UNICEF together with UNFPA, we launched a global program to end child marriage across 12 countries across the world. And there are 4 of those countries are in East Africa and and Southern Africa as well. So we have Ethiopia, Mozambique, Uganda, and Zambia in East and Southern Africa, but we also have Ghana, Niger, Sierra Leone, and Burkina Faso in West Africa and other countries of the world. And this global program is working in 3 phases. And the program aims to address complex social, cultural, and structural factors that underpin the practice of child marriage, with the goal of ending the practice by 2030, which is in line with the Sustainable Development Goal 5.3. And for this particular program, we're working in those 4 countries I mentioned, and we are following key strategies that guide our implementation on the ground. And we use a mixture of this strategy to tackle child marriage, and we're looking more specifically at increasing agency and resources for adolescents, especially the girls, knowing that the girls are the ones who suffer the most from child marriage in this region. At risk and affected by child marriage. We also look at increasing the investment in girls and shifting social expectation of girls and boys, including engaging women and men. Male engagement is extremely important, we've seen, because in many households in the region, the fathers are the ones who make the decision, and they need to be this program through enhancing systems and services that respond to the needs of adolescents at risk or affected by child marriage. And we also look at the component of enhancing legal and development of policy framework, extremely important, as it was mentioned by Nena earlier on in her presentation, the need to establish or even enact laws that are against child marriage. And also lastly, we also look at using robust evidence for advocacy, programming, and learning to tackle the progress that we're making. A lot of research is being done. Nena mentioned about, the AU child marriage campaign that was rolled out a couple of years ago. UNICEF supported the evaluation of that campaign to see how things are working on the ground. And just before maybe I pause to invite my counterpart, I would like also to mention that around 2019, in Africa, we have the European Union Spotlight Initiative, which is the world's largest targeted effort to end all forms of violence against women and girls and harmful practices, including child marriage and FGM, female genital mutilation. And this is really a buildup of what the global program has already started to do, using similar theory of change and targets to ensure that we leave no one behind. And the Spotlight Initiative is being implemented in Zimbabwe, Uganda, Malawi, and Mozambique. And in West Africa, we have Liberia, Mali, Niger, and Nigeria. And also this program is also looking at addressing national legislative and policy gaps, strengthening institutions, promoting gender equitable attitudes, and providing quality services for survivors and victims of violence and their families. And all of this is being done through governments in the countries I mentioned, CSOs, and of course in partnership with UN agencies, and also the global and regional bodies, and adolescent girls themselves have also very critical in the program implementation. Maybe I'd like to pause here and invite my colleague Anandita to also come in and contribute to this.
Absolutely, Anandita.
Thank you so much, Mona, and thank you so much to the organizers of this event, Plan International and other partners, for inviting UNFPA and UNICEF to speak with you today in this really critical engagement with religious leaders who have been a key part of the global program that Mona just spoke about. So Mona has given a very good overview of 5 years of the global program this year. And so it's an anniversary year for us to look back at the program here, especially keeping in mind the devastating impact that COVID-19 has had on so many of our countries. And we have also seen, as Nena spoke about, the emerging evidence that shows that there's been huge spikes, not only in child marriage, but also in teenage pregnancies, gender-based violence, and HIV as well. So the need to look at those multiple levels of vulnerability is important. But what I wanted to really compliment Mona is to have heard Nena's overview today about the work that they've been doing, because UNFPA and UNICEF have been there side by side with the African Union as they've led the continental work on how to end child marriage. Examples of what we have done together include the work on the AU campaign to end child marriage, to ensure that that campaign was rolled out at continental, at a national level. UNFPA and UNICEF supported the AU in several of the national launches as well. And the critical work then to take the work forward. How do we ensure that child marriage actually was a key part of national policies and strategies? And that is work that UNFPA and UNICEF have done at country level to support the rollout of those strategies and the implementation. In addition, we have also worked closely with the African Union on the African Girls Summits. Nena spoke about this. We've had 2 summits on the continent, which has really galvanized and mobilized partners across the continent on ending child marriage, as well as ensuring that we work together with the African Union on plugging some of those data and accountability gaps that Nena and Mona mentioned. One of the key pieces of work that we're currently engaged in together with several partners on this call, including Nena and Mona, is on developing an AU accountability framework on child marriage and FGM. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier about the evaluation that showed us both what immense progress has been made, but also some of the significant gaps that remain in order to shift the work. And this is why it's so important that the AU normative frameworks and other policies that are currently in place are actually implemented at country level as well, in order to see that real change in the life of a girl and in the life of the people we seek to support. And we know the key role that religious leaders play in making those changes at community and individual level. And so we're very pleased to be together in this meeting and to continue to support the work of the AU and the engagement with religious leaders. I'll stop there and back to you as the facilitator.
Thank you, Anadita. I will move to Narita. Narita, considering that you as an institution, you're representing Girls Not Brides, your primary focus as well, amongst the many other areas of work that your organization is engaged in, is the fight to end child marriage. From a Girls Not Brides perspective, what are your comments in regards to how your engagements with member states have been in regards to adaptation of the AU protocols? And if you have any other additional information you want to share today, please feel free to go ahead.
Thank you so much. Royal Highnesses, Excellencies, distinguished guests, my fellow panelists. Allow me to greet you and receive warm greetings with all protocols observed and respected. Just like my colleagues on the panel, it is really a privilege and an honor for me to be among you today. And I've really learned a lot listening to the previous speakers. I'll just give a very brief 30-second introduction of Girls Not Brides to those who may not be familiar with us. We were initiated in 2011, actually in Addis in Ethiopia, by the Elders. The Elders is a group of independent global leaders that are working together to promote peace and human rights. Girls Not Brides was then created their efforts to bring more attention on child marriage, and really with a focus on encouraging and empowering stakeholders across the globe to work together to end child marriage. As the global partnership to end child marriage, we share the conviction that every girl has the right to live the life she chooses, and that it is through ending child marriage as well as other harmful practices that we can achieve a safer, healthier, and more prosperous future, which I know everyone here shares. So as part of what we do, we are currently the only umbrella movement working to end marriage across Africa. We are membership-based. We have over 1,500 members globally. Over 800 of these are civil society organizations in Africa. Our partners are diverse. They range from grassroots civil society organizations to international NGOs, national civil society organizations as well, and everything in between. I would say our strength as a partnership is really the collective and individual work of these members. As part of what we do, I think our focus is really on accelerating progress to end child marriage. I want to mention a lot of what my other colleagues have mentioned, because I do totally agree, and that the work, especially from the UN, resonates with us, Plan International as well. But I think for us as a civil society partnership, our focus is how do we then accelerate progress. We've seen the potential, we've seen the coming up of development of protocols and instruments, as well as policies in countries, as well as national strategies to end child marriage in a number of countries, in which we also assist our members to partner with governments to develop. But over and above this is really looking at how firstly this policies or strategies or plans are being implemented, both by government but also by non-governmental organizations, and what role can we as a civil society partnership play in this. So it's really monitoring African governments' commitments on ending child marriage, and also continue with key stakeholders, including government. Our key, I think, I would call it a theory of change to end child marriage, focuses on what we call our 4 pillars approach, in which we recognize that child marriage is rooted in gender inequality. Therefore, we believe in investing in girls' agency, participation, and well-being, so that girls see themselves as rights bearers with choices and opportunity. Our second pillar is really mobilizing families and communities. So engaging families, communities, men, boys, young people, religious and traditional leaders, so that we can start to see social norms change in the attitudes on the value of girls, and also change of communities' perception on child marriage. Our third pillar is really providing services, so delivering services across different sectors: health, education, protection, reinforce one another, that are working together and that are tailored to meeting the specific needs of girls, especially girls that are at risk of child marriage. And then fourthly, but not last, is really how do we strengthen law and the policy framework that already exists at the continental level, but also at our country level. And this means adopting and implementing a really comprehensive framework of preventing child marriage, but also a framework that supports married girls and that holds duty bearers accountable. We believe that girls have to be meaningfully involved in the development of these policies, laws, and frameworks. So this is one thing as a civil society partnership, we really encourage our members to involve girls, involve children, involve men, involve women at the community level, so that we ensure that whatever policies that are being passed, they reflect and address the needs and lived realities of girls, especially girls at risk of child marriage. And we also believe that education is a key, it's not the only, but it is a key protective factor against child marriage. And that by increasing girl access to education, keeping girls in school, does benefit girls, does benefit families, does benefit communities, and also serves to delay child marriage in many communities. So just to end very quickly, we have worked with traditional cultural leaders, especially in some of our countries, and I'll speak specifically about our work last year in Uganda, where we noted, where we had champions. Some of our champions in Uganda in one of our projects called Accelerating Progress to End Child Marriage are religious and traditional leaders, especially traditional leaders who occupy a unique position in this country to act as role models, influencing positive change of attitudes, values, and norms, and are administrators of customary law that exists often in parallel to civil law. So we worked with a traditional leader who were champions to who lent their influence to campaigns and advocated for changes in attitudes, but also changes in policy and legislation. And they called upon their communities to mobilize against harmful. Part of what they did is also really working within their communities to ensure that birth certificates, for example, are a prerequisite for marriage ceremonies, as His Royal Highness Chief Chamukha had also said during Zambia, but also to be the voice to clarify that traditional practices that are harmful to children should not be part of practices that are being carried out. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Nurida. Now I would like to hear from the government's perspective at national level. McKnight and then Brigitta. How are the countries adapting the AU protocols at national level and actually domesticating them in your national framework? So we can start with McKnight and then we can move to Brigitta.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. Okay,
thank you. Let me begin by recognizing the distinguished guests and the panelists listening to this discussion. From the government perspective, we have over the years done quite a lot to look at domesticating the international treaties and the regional treaties by first and foremost looking at our national laws. I'm pleased to report that in February 2017, government of Malawi had to amend its constitution to address the issue of who is a child. So the constitution had to be amended from the age of 16 to the age of 18. And alongside that constitutional amendment, Around the 2015, quite a few pieces of legislation were enacted. The most critical one being the Marriage, Divorce and Family Relations Act, which set the age of marriage at 18. And moving on, in terms of now implementation of these laws, we identified gaps that were in existence. So as one way of addressing those gaps, we have developed what we call a community awareness handbook, which is addressing the issues of bylaws that the traditional leaders have been establishing. And in this community awareness handbook, what we are looking at is to address issues of harmful practices, issues of child marriage, issues of the need for girls to attain and complete education, and other related child protection issues. The key being to raise awareness on the available laws, but also to engage the communities in terms of how they can influence behavior change, and also help the country to address issues of child marriage. Besides that, as a ministry, we are coordinating efforts of all the partners that are engaged in ending child marriage interventions. In the country, for the last 7 years, we have had partnerships with the Girls Not Brides, More Than Brides Alliances, Yes I Do Alliance. These are alliances that are working on ending child marriages. Alongside that, we have also noted through research that there is a role for the children. So currently, the government of Malawi is encouraging the district councils to establish what we call children's parliaments. To date, out of the 28 districts, we have established 5 children parliaments, which are facilitated by members from the ministry and the National Assembly. And the issues of child marriages are one of the key issues which are tackled through this forum. And in attendance, we have our traditional leaders and other duty bearers at the council level. So we see that as something that is quite helpful to help us domesticating the protocols, because the children also need to know the laws that are there to protect them. In addition to that, we are running a national child helpline, coordinating that through a local NGO, and that has proved to be very successful in raising awareness on the issues of child marriage, but also children reporting when their rights are violated. So these are some of the things that we are doing to ensure that there is domestication of the international protocols and the treaties, and also domesticating our own national laws. It's one thing to have a progressive law, but then it's another thing to have that law implemented. And alongside the community awareness handbook, we realize that the community has a greater role to play in addressing this issue of child marriages. So we have further developed what we call a community action guide, which guides community members on what sort of actions can they take to address this issue of child marriage. And if a marriage does occur, what sort of steps can they take to nullify that marriage, and what should be put in place to ensure that the issues to do with education of the girl child when they return to school are adequately addressed. So, in a way, the government is coordinating the efforts of the partners, but also providing the necessary legal and policy frameworks and strengthening them where they appear to be weak, more especially the area of the bylaws, which had its own challenges. Briefly, that's what I will share for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kalanda. Brigitta, Tanzania, under 2-3 minutes, due to the interest of time. How is Tanzania domesticating the protocol? Brigitta?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Just under 2 minutes because of time. Sorry to rush you.
Okay, thanks. In Tanzania, we have the National Plan of Action to End Violence Against Women and Children. And this is the action from 2017 to 2022. In this action plan, we have adapted the strategy from the national to the village level, where in each village and at the ward level, we have formed the committee for ending violence against women and children, where traditional leaders, influential leaders, and some of the community members are part of the committee, where they work together to end violence and help pregnancy at the village, from the village to the national level. Also, this committee is working together with other stakeholders like government during the commemoration of national events like International Women's Day, 16 days of activism, where they advocate for girls' rights, specifically for the issue of child marriage and child pregnancy, as well as violence against women and children. We have also the presence of helpline 113, which is used to report any instance of child violence that has been occurred in the community. So the traditional leaders, influential leaders, and the police gender desk, they are working together to report any incidents that has been occurred within the community. Also, the government, I think they are in the process of reviewing the law of the Marriage Act that allows the girl to get married at the age of 14. So still the government are working to review to make sure that the age of the girls, to increase the age of the girl to get married from 14 to maybe to 20 or to 22 years old. I think for our side, that is what we have for now.
Thank you so much. Now at grassroots level, Precious Babbage, you work directly with the chiefs in Zimbabwe. How do you think the domestication of AU protocols at chiefdom level from a civil society perspective is going? What is your opinion on that? Precious, are you there?
Hello, Lynn.
Hi.
Thank you very much. Just to respond to your question on how it is going on civil society engagement, I would also just want to share that just for a background, looking at the Plan International point of view, that we're doing a lot to ensure that there is domestication of the protocols at AU level, even as evidenced by the existence of the Pan-African Office, where Sam was sharing how they are collaborating efforts within the plan countries to ensure that we are providing support to ensure that the rights of the children are fulfilled. Also that on the plan level, just to share that we have a bold global ambition of reaching out to 100 million girls so that they can achieve their full potential. And we are aware that most of these girls, or a number of these girls, are being are at risk of these child marriages, and many are being trapped by this, more so due to the COVID-19 context. and what's happening. So what we're doing is we are doing a lot, being guided by our theory of change, where we are looking at supporting the girl at individual level, supporting the social networks that surround the girl, and also not ignoring also the policy level, where we are ensuring that something is done there. So even as what has been shared before, we are collaborating efforts. We believe that we cannot do it alone. We believe in the multi-sectorial approach, where we are combining efforts, forming consortiums, doing efforts to end child marriages together with Girls Not Brides, UNFPA, Rosalia Memorial Trust, you name them. And then, so we are at that level. That's what we've been doing. And also just to share that, if you remember well, the establishment of the International Day of the Girl plan had a lot to do with that, even in the movements, together with the partnerships. And we are happy to share that that day is there for us to always remember that the rights of the girl is fulfilled, and child marriage is a child rights violation. So if we get down to the country levels, we see that the multi-sectorial approach is it continues, where we have plan partnering with a lot of other CSOs. We don't do it alone. Like in this very regional meeting, we have plan in the different countries partnering with other implementing partners so that we can address the issue of child marriages and ensure that we put measures in place to end child marriages. And also, just to share that even as we believe in a gender transformative approach, which is one of the strategies from the AU level, which is being recommended, we also believe that we have to transform some of these harmful cultural practices. So we are doing also a lot working together with the traditional leaders with the end, we're having the objective that it's not just collaborating efforts, it's not just putting anyone on the limelight as such, but the intended outcome is for that girl to be rescued, is for the child marriages to be eradicated. So our efforts working with traditional leaders, and we are so happy that even as planned, we are supporting a lot of regional networking, where we have traditional leaders coming in from the different countries to share their experiences, what they have seen to be working, what are the best practices, and how, like what Chief Chamukha was sharing, how he came to even come up with the bylaws and how best this can be done. So this also reminds me of where we have traditional leaders coming in, like the Maputo, the Malawi Declaration, the Lusaka Declaration, the Lira Declaration, where our traditional leaders are joining efforts to bring an end to child marriage. So we see this multi-sectorial approach as one that really works, and CSO involvement is very, very critical if we are to reach a higher target, if you are to reach more of the girls. I also believe that the approach of engaging CSOs, because they are also at the grassroots level, and we can have more impact, so that one day we can really sit in such a platform and share that we have the rates of child marriages declining because of the various efforts that are being made. Also to share that maybe as planned, we have
1 minute, Precious. Sorry, 1 more minute to go.
Okay. Thank you so much. We also believe as planned that anything for that girl child who is being married without them is not very impactful. So we are doing a lot of youth engagement, working with youth organizations, putting the young people on the forefront, so that they speak, their voice is heard. They collaborate efforts with the traditional leaders. They collaborate, they put their voice together for policies to really be aligned so that they can be protected. So we believe that building up girls' movements and working together as a multi-sectoral approach will indeed pay dividends at the end of the day in ending child marriages. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you, Precious. Thank you to our panelists. May the admin please show us what's in the chat so we can look at the questions. In the meantime, as we are addressing questions and comments in the chat, are there questions from the countries? If there are questions from the countries, from our able leadership, our traditional leaders, from the government delegates and everybody, if you have questions for the panelists, kindly utilize your admins in your respective locations, and they'll raise their hand and we'll answer those questions. May we see what's in the chat box, please? I'm not able to navigate on my laptop. Meti?
Hi, Lynn. We don't have any questions in the chat box.
I'm sorry?
We don't have any questions in the chat box.
Oh, there are no questions in the chat. Okay, any questions from the other countries, for our panelists? I heard a voice, Meti?
No questions from the chat, Lynn.
Okay, sure, thank you. From the countries, Malawi, are there any questions for our panelists? Malawi?
There are no questions.
Thank you. Tanzania?
No question.
Zimbabwe?
No questions, Lynn.
Zambia?
No question.
Okay, so this is a question I have for our panelists. Is it wishful thinking for us to believe that by 2030, we'll record little or no child marriages at all in Africa? Under 1 minute, your comments, Your Highness Chief Chamukha. Are we wishfully thinking, or it's a possibility with all these interventions that are in place?
Thank you. I would like to mention that with a collaborative effort and with good political will from all our leaders in Africa and all the international organizations and NGOs, I would like to mention that there is no better medicine than teamwork and commitment. If we continue working together and addressing certain gaps that we have been identifying, I think it is possible that we can reduce the prevalences of child marriage and other bad cultural practices by, let's say, 2030.
Thank you so much. Dr. Nyarazai, do we still have you? Dr. Nyarazai? Or have we lost her?
Lynn, I don't think Dr. Nyarazai is with us.
All right, Nerida?
Thank you, Lynn. I'll be the optimist and say that over the past 10 years, we've seen a decline in some countries in Africa of the trend. For example, I'll just speak on Ethiopia because it's at the top of my mind. We've seen in Ethiopia the prevalence of child marriage was about 60% in 2015, which dropped to 40% in 2020. And if the same rate of decline continues in the next 10 years, we'll see less than 10% of child brides by 2035. So it is possible. The falling trends are possible, but I think only if we accelerate progress, and this means really getting stakeholders that are not working with us currently to partner and to be our champions, to be our advocates of ending child, and emphasizing the need for all community stakeholders to just ramp up their interventions aimed at ending child marriage. And I think if we do this, we will see a reduction. I'm also cognizant of the fact that COVID-19 has brought its own complications, for example, school closures. But I think even with this, if we continue to accelerate progress, get more partners, put more effort, I think we will see a decline.
Thank you, Nerida. Is Mona and Anadita still on the chat? Are they still available?
Yes, we are. Anandita, you're here. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. We're here.
So from UNICEF's perspective and UNFPA's perspective, is it wishful thinking that child marriage will end? We will not even hear of these cases by 2030.
Thank you so much. That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? So let me answer, and then I'm sure Mona will complement. I have three quick messages in response to that. One is that we have seen significant progress on the continent in terms of a reduction in prevalence rates across countries. Narita spoke about Ethiopia, which is probably the most successful sort of reduction we've seen on the continent, but there are other countries also that are in similar situations. That's message number one. Message number two is, however, we can't get complacent, because the fact of the matter is that with population growth, what we're going to see in the future is the numbers of young girls who will be married, if things stay the way they are currently, will continue to increase. So that's the second thing that I wanted to say. So that brings me to my last point, which is the takeaway message for the group of all of us working on this issue, is that we really need to step up the work. We need to sustain the momentum we have got, and we need to accelerate the actions we have on evidence-based interventions to really see a change on the continent long term. I'll stop there and hand over to Mona.
Thank you, Mona.
Thank you, Anandita, for that. I mean, if I'm to say this in 1 minute, and already the previous speakers have alluded to this, have mentioned this, there's a need to definitely accelerate action to end child marriage. We have less than a decade left, and given the challenges COVID-19 has brought for us, there's a risk already calculated of about 10 million more girls at risk of getting married. So there's a need for all of us to work together to end these harmful practices. When we look at strengthening integrated approach, is extremely important. We saw during that, at the onset of the pandemic, the health sector was out and working and supporting communities and so forth. But the social service workforce, the social services kind of was on hold because it wasn't identified as essential and critical services to be provided during the pandemic. So there's a need to have a better understanding with all the sectors involved so that we can be able to end this vice together. Also, when it comes to sexual and reproductive health information and services, this is also extremely important, making sure that this is available, children have access and young people have access to these services without any discrimination. And also, I think when it comes to the lessons learned from the COVID-19, and we don't even know up to now when it's going to end, we still need to scale up the inclusive digital learning and develop programs to support safe return of girls to school when such a lockdown happens again, and really be able to continue programs implementation even during lockdowns with such crises. And lastly, it's also important to ensure that we invest in research and learning to prepare programming after the crisis and measure the success of the post-crisis recovery, because we're really not sure, where we are at the moment until we do the research and accelerate efforts towards the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. From a government perspective, Mr. Kalanda and then Brigitta, is it wishful thinking from a national level perspective?
Thank you so much. It is not. For as long as we address the following: one, education for the girls is key, and unless we are not providing universal secondary education, then it becomes wishful thinking. Two, we improve on accountability for results. There are so many interventions on ending child marriages, but maybe what is missing is the accountability for results. So we need to improve on that. And three, in terms of change, the children, the girls and the boys also have a role to play. Over the years, it has been so much of an adult's issue. So we need to invest in making the girls and the boys agents of change on issues of child marriages. If we can do that through the various fora, youth groups, children's parliaments, children's corners, and what have you, then we have a winning formula. Lastly but not least, we need to continue investing in what the traditional leaders and religious leaders do in the communities. That will indeed help us to achieve those targets that are set in the SDGs and the Agenda 2040. Thank you.
Thank you. Brigitta?
Okay, thanks. I think it's possible because the government is doing their best to make sure girls are put in school. We have bylaws, and even the community, they are aware that if you give a pregnancy to a girl, you will end up 30 years in jail. So I think this awareness, bylaws, and the intervention of the organization like Plan International and other organizations that has been done in our community, we hope that this, by that time, the issue of early marriage and early pregnancy will be decreased. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we evidently have so much to talk about when it comes to the issue of child marriage. And it's actually very promising to see that at all levels of leadership and all levels of governance, there's a lot that is going on to ensure that child marriage is an issue of the past. We can see a lot of stakeholder engagement. There's a robust multi-sectoral approach where all the levels of leadership are working together to ensure that these efforts solidify the fight to end child marriage. From me, allow me to bring the panel discussion to a close. I thank you so much to all of you, Your Royal Highness, Nena and Tenda, the dignitaries from Malawi and Tanzania, Dr. Nyarazai, for finding time to join us during this very important issue of discussion. And I'm sure there's so much on our minds that we still want to share, but as this meeting is going on till the next day, I'm sure there'll be another opportunity for us to be able to bring out these key issues that we still have buried in our hearts that we want to share for everybody else to learn. From me, thank you so much. Over to you, Nettie. Thank you. Oh, can we have a round of applause, please? Thank you, all of you.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for the excellent facilitation of moderation of the session. I think we have come to learn so much from different stakeholders and our traditional leaders that participated in the session. Before we break, I would like to request for a group picture for everyone to open their cameras, and then when we come back, we will proceed to the next stations. But we will begin with the introduction of each country representatives. Our esteemed traditional leaders. Your Royal Highness will, of course, introduce yourselves before we move to the next session. But first, we will have a group picture now. Thank you. Jenny?
Yes, I'm here. I'm waiting for Tanzania and Honorable.
Can I ask how we're going to do it? Are you taking the picture as per screen, or do you expect people to stand or something? Or do we take our own individual picture and send to you?
That too, but I want to take one for all of us. So like for Malawi, are we able to zoom out so that I can get the whole room? Zim also. Mozambique is perfect. Zambia is perfect. Thank you, Alejandra Bocamba. Tanzania, I'm waiting for you. Tanzania. Naomba munini muashe camera. Tanzania. Tanzania, please switch on your camera. Thank you.
Yes.
Sam, you've disappeared. Thank you. And all those of us who can be seen, can we do end child marriage? And let's all shout. 1, 2, go.
Child marriage.
Again.
End child marriage.
Okay, I can't see. Okay, for Malawi, you have to zoom in a bit because I can't see. I'm just seeing people's figures. Are you able to zoom in a little bit? I see people.
Malawi, you have no lights.
A little bit more. Malawi. One, two, go. End child marriage.
End child marriage.
Okay, I think I got it. Zimbabwe has the best photo. Thank you so much, guys. We are going for a 15-minute break. Actually, let's cut it to 7. So we'll be back here by 12:05. So we can continue because we ran out of time. So if you can be able to be back here by 12:05, that would be amazing. In the meantime, there's a video for us to watch.
How will we take the picture individually and each
you can, Lynn, you can use your phone and then you can share with me later. Malawi, that's a beautiful photo. I think I'll take Malawi again.